Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to Today in Bitcoin. Today is April the 18th, 2017. This is the home of cryptocurrency, straight talk, no fancy set of graphics, just information. And today, I am so pumped to have a guy that many of you know, that all of you should know. It's Tuur Demeester. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. Good to be here.
Yeah, he's coming straight out of Dallas, Texas today. Tuur, tell us about your awesome background and what you've been up to lately, just so everyone gets a feel of what you're all about.
So my background is in economics, Austrian economics. I had a financial newsletter back in Belgium and Holland. Started writing about Bitcoin early on, and then made a few investments in the space. Have been around the conference circuit, and now I'm slowly looking into the hedge fund space. I think there are some interesting things happening there where people are interested, and for me, it's a potential opportunity to work with some really smart people that I can learn from. So basically, helping institutional money invest in the cryptocurrency space is what I'm looking to do maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, but I'm not in a hurry, and I'm still very much excited about just being in the space and commenting and talking about what makes sense for me to, position my own portfolio in. That's what I've been doing the past 3 years.
Okay. Well, I will say this. You've got an awesome Twitter that I've been following. It's linked to below. We'll have all of Tuur's important links linked to below, including an article. He writes a lot of stuff. It's great. We're going to link to a Medium article of his also that we're going to discuss very soon. So let's get into the topics of the day here, because obviously the segregated witness situation is, I mean, that's the big subject on everyone's mind here. And right now, the Litecoin signaling situation for Segwit is there's a lot of drama involved. There's a lot of drama in the Bitcoin Segwit situation that's connected to that. So can you tell us your thoughts and connect the dots on how the Bitcoin and the Litecoin Segwit are related, and tell us where you see all this going?
Yeah, well, I guess the big picture is that Segwit is a suggested upgrade to the Bitcoin protocol. Will make Lightning a lot easier to implement, so super high-speed Bitcoin transactions. Will also solve a few malleability issues, which will make development also from other perspectives more easy. So like and also, of course, it increases the actual block size by a factor of almost 4. So that's also on-chain scaling right there. And been kind of, I guess, boycotted, you could say, by a number of Chinese miners. It looks like, and so now, the question is like, can we possibly implement Segwit on Litecoin to kind of show off what it can do, and to also reassure everyone that it's safe. And so that's why there's been some buzz and excitement about, because Litecoin has started signaling a bunch of miners, and it looks like I don't know, it's like a flip of a coin at this point, whether it's actually going to be activated or not. There's some miners that seem to enjoy kind of toying around with Litecoin, where it's like, oh, I'm activating it, and the next day deactivating, and it has to be, my understanding is that it has to be an average of 75% of the blocks over a period of two weeks, I think. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to activate or not. I don't know if I do find it kind of interesting that it's almost the first time in a very long time that I've heard like people be positive about Litecoin, like with a story that kind of makes sense. I don't know if that means that it has long-term staying power. I do think it's going to stay around, but I don't know if that means like it's going to make a leap like Ethereum had. But I do think it adds some credibility to this story that Litecoin is kind of a testnet for Bitcoin, and that it's kind of maybe the silver for Bitcoin, where if there are problems that it can kind of serve as a backup, especially with the proof of work algorithm, like because Litecoin has a different algorithm. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a huge deal when you like look at it in the big picture. I think the issue is not, is Segwit secure? It's been tested to no end. I think it is going to get implemented eventually. So this is more kind of like, we're all waiting for the show to start, and now this is kind of like a diversion before the show is like, oh, this is kind of, it's like, the opening act that's kind of distracting and maybe entertaining, but I don't think it's really very important.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about the proposed user activated soft fork here. What's your opinion on that? Do you see that maybe being tried out on Litecoin and then on Bitcoin? Do you feel that as a viable option to get things going? Are you in a rush to get Segwit going on Bitcoin?
Yeah. So yeah, user activated soft fork is where basically, rather than everybody waiting for the miners to be first, the users take the initiative and start signaling for, saying that, hey, we want a different rule set for Bitcoin. It's a soft fork. So basically, you would still signal and say, hey, me as an individual node, I want a stricter rule set than what has so far been accepted, so that there's still compatibility between the older versions. And so that there's been a bunch of talk about that. I think it's BIP 148 is the ones that has the most buzz around it. I think that probably Greg Maxwell is right that even though philosophically it's definitely something to stand behind if you believe in user autonomy, if you believe in the whole idea of Bitcoin as a decentralized currency, but that doesn't mean that this particular proposal has been fleshed out very well or tested very well. So maybe if the boycott of Segwit keeps lasting, there should be more thorough testing, and then eventually we would get UASF for Segwit. So there's like different angles at which Segwit seems to be possible, and even though user activated soft fork might not happen, the fact that it's possible, I think, takes away some leverage from these Chinese miners who thought like, oh, well, we can just play this game as long as we want. I think it's clear that that's not the case. If people are really fed up, they can just fork away and then do economic damage to miners who still run the old versions. So yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen, but it's very interesting that it's there, and I definitely keep following it closely. It doesn't seem, I don't know if you look at how many people are signaling, I think it's about 10% now that's kind of signaling the nodes that want user activated soft fork. So it's definitely early stage it's not going to happen tomorrow, I think.
Well, it's good that that option is out there, I think. I'm obviously a guy who supports the very well-tested Segwit. I feel that it is the option. It's the only real option out there, and that the market is telling us something. When it appears that Segwit is getting closer, the price seems to go up. And also the same thing was going on Litecoin. When it appeared that it was getting closer to Segwit, the price would go up. Do you have a prediction of when Bitcoin is going to implement segregated witness, how we're going to get there, who's going to give in, and what will happen to the price once all of this uncertainty is gone?
Yeah, that's the big one, right? So like, first of all, I think it's important to look at Bitcoin as it is and like kind of appreciate that it is serving a lot of market needs right here and now. Like, it's not like Bitcoin is this potential thing that could be, if only we can activate Segwit, and then it's going to actually, be something that's economically valuable. Like, there's lots and lots of use cases that are where people can only use Bitcoin to do so, right? If you're thinking about, obviously, darknet markets, gambling, but then there's also like online pharmacies, sectors or parts of the e-commerce space where there's a high risk for chargeback. That's kind of the general space in which Bitcoin is successful. Then there's remittance. We have Bitcoin gambling, which is pretty huge. What else is there? Obviously, store of value. Like, Bitcoin is the immutable blockchain. It's totally unique in that sense. It's by far the most secure network in the world. So all of that, and like even though big people talk about the Bitcoin Cold War and all that, the network is just humming along fine. Like you can just send and receive transactions. So Segwit is really like it's an upgrade to take it to the next level, where just these incredible things are possible with the Lightning Network, and also some solutions with regards to fungibility to make Bitcoin more private. So it's almost like, yeah, I don't know, like, jumping from Web 1.0 to Web 3.0, like all of a sudden. And so I think the Bitcoin price could very well rise even without Segwit being adopted in the near term. But I do think if Segwit were to be adopted, because there's been just so much talk about it, because we have Lightning Alpha already active, it could really very well double. And then when is it going to happen? I mean, double in a short period of time is what I mean. And then when is it going to be activated? I mean, we're at around 30%. If we can have 50% for a sustained amount of time, it's my understanding that that might even be enough to actually activate Segwit, because of how the variance works in mining, that eventually you would have a 2-week time span where you have a high percentage of miners signaling for Segwit. So I don't know. I think for sure in the next 18 months, obviously I'm not certain, but I think it's very likely in the next 18 months. I think it's probably still more likely than not to happen in 2017 somewhere. But I'm not gonna sell my Bitcoins if that doesn't happen. Like, I still think the network has incredible value, and there's ways to work around Segwit not being activated. You can have certain forms of Lightning. You can also do obviously off-chain scaling that is still happening. So I don't know. Bitcoin is going to keep growing despite this whole, I guess you could call it a shit show.
Well, I'll say this. You're basically saying that the status quo as it is right now, Bitcoin is doing a lot of things. It's solving a lot of problems, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, so status quo is, it is not there's a prominent doom and gloomer out there who says that the status quo is like the end of the world. I mean, and we're living fine through it. I mean, I don't see that many complaints with the status quo. And I mean, there's some things you can pick on, like, oh, I can't get coffee or something like that. But I mean, you're pretty comfortable with the status quo, obviously, it appears.
Well, it depends on how you how you got into Bitcoin, and if you thought Bitcoin meant free transactions for anyone, anywhere, at any time, then obviously you think Bitcoin is failing right now. But if you looked at Bitcoin, which was kind of my perspective, as an alternative to gold, digital gold, then Bitcoin is doing amazing. If you like, one of the important metrics I think to look at is you can find it on bitcoin.sipa.be. It's the Peter Wöhler's website. It's called a proof of work equivalent days. It basically shows how many days a miner would need if he had 100% of the network today, because maybe he invented a quantum computer or something like that. If he had, if he has the maximum amount of hashing power available, the fastest chip, how many days would he need to replicate the entire proof of work chain? And so back in early 2014, because the 28 nanometer just came out, and that was so much better than the previous ones, in a mere 50 days, you could recreate the entire blockchain with the total hash rate available then. But today, that number is closer to 300 days. So you'd need an entire year, even if you were the only miner around, having all the existing mining power to basically try and rewrite the Bitcoin history. So I think that's an important metric of Bitcoin security. And I think that's going to keep increasing. And that's a metric that shows how secure the Bitcoin network is. And that is for, I mean, I don't know if we want to segue into Ethereum, for example, but that is one aspect of proof of stake that's a very big difference, where with proof of stake, you need a lot less resources likely to forge history. And that's what concerns me about blockchains that either are proof of stake or that are wanting to move into proof of stake, is that you have this fundamental insecurity that looms that could, at any time you could have this 0-day attack.
Well, we are going to talk about Ethereum. I am glad you brought that up. I wanted to say, you mentioned a link just now. If you can send me that link afterwards, everyone will want to check that out, definitely. Now, I want to remind everyone, we have like 90 live viewers, for them to pound that like button right now if they like what they hear and like what they see. A viewer actually asked a question. I guess it's a technical question, and I don't know this guy. They said that there's someone named Sergio Lerner Rose. He mentioned an issue about Segwit. Are you familiar with this Sergio Lerner person? What he said about Segwit, some technical problem?
Well, yeah, Sergio, he's an Argentinian core developer. I think he's most known for doing some analysis on, early on at least, on the Satoshi Nakamoto mining, like how many Bitcoin Satoshi has that came out of like some of his research. And then he started with Rootstock. Also, Sergio, he's the co-patent claimer for ASIC Boost. So he worked together with Timo Hanke to create that ASIC Boost technology or hack, however you want to call it, that has been so controversial lately. But I'm not familiar with specific criticisms of Sergio when it comes to Segwit. As far as I understand, he was supportive of it, but maybe I missed something.
Okay, maybe if the guy in the chat can elaborate a little bit more on there and like put question next to it, I will ask Tuur if what you're exactly talking about. So you said that Bitcoin is by far the most secure network in the world, and so this is a good segue. And then you started talking about Ethereum. Now you have a Medium post that was about Ethereum and said, I guess this is from early April. I'm not worried about Bitcoin Unlimited, but I am losing sleep over Ethereum. And by the way, I call that China coin. I shouldn't have said that what I just said about B. I only refer to that as China coin. Sorry, all my viewers know that. But yeah, so are you still concerned about Ethereum? Because you kind of just downplayed it a little bit. What are your thoughts about Ethereum? One thing you mentioned specifically in your article was that the future inflation rate is unknown. And to me, that's all you had to say. I mean, it's no threat at all to Bitcoin if the future inflation rate is unknown. But you did. Everyone should check out that article you wrote. So, and you also just tweeted out that Ethereum could be at $100 in a few months. So, go at it with this Ethereum.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the big picture for me is I'm a cryptocurrency maximalist, right? Because I think cryptocurrency, really, the promise of cryptocurrency is an internet of property where not only do you have money and cash and digital cash, all those kind of things, but then also layers of financial products built on top of it, prediction markets, derivatives, bonds, all kinds of things built on top of it. And so in order to be able to build that, you need a secure base. And I think that Bitcoin could be that. And because this secure base is so important, and because of all these network effects, I really do think that we'll have one dominant cryptocurrency that is going to be the basis. And then, of course, there'll be other ones that fill certain niches and that are maybe more like the intranets of today's internet. Like there's other types of networks, but that are much smaller. And so I for a long time I thought it was Bitcoin, and I still do think so. But I was also in the process of moving house, and I kind of missed looking at the price. And Ethereum had gone down from I think it was $1.5 billion market cap, all the way down to 500 million. But then it shot up to $3 billion, $5 billion. And I really lost sleep over it. It's like, am I missing something big here? Like what, is there something that I'm not seeing? Is the market telling me something that I should be looking at in terms of competitiveness with Bitcoin? In particular, like, is it possible that people are kind of okay with a more centralized currency? I mean, if you look at digital currency today, 90 I don't know how much it would be. It's probably like 70% of the value of all digital currency today is in the US dollar. That has an unpredictable supply, but most people don't really care. They look at the value between today and the next 6 months, and they see that it's kind of stable, and everybody accepts it, and so that's why the dollar is dominant. So I'm just trying to like open my mind to like, is there something that people are saying, even though I might like a currency that has a capped rate, I might like a currency that is not Turing vulnerable, that has a lower attack surface, that doesn't need hard forks to fix urgent things, that is verifiably, where you can't rewrite the history so easily, that doesn't need like a central committee if there's a crisis to decide which version is the right one. But because Ethereum has gotten a lot of enthusiasm with developers that are starting to build applications on top of it. There's a whole bunch of startups that are building on it. All the ICOs are launching on top of Ethereum, and so like I'm not convinced. Like I only own a little bit of Ethereum. When I say that Ethereum could go to 100 from here, it's mainly looking at the chart and just looking at market sentiment, rather than I believe Ethereum should be $10 billion in a few months. Like that's not my opinion. I think Ethereum should be a lot lower, particularly because proof of work today, they have a lot of blockchain bloat issues, and they're pretending, or they are saying that they're going to solve that with Casper, which means it's an upgrade that includes sharding the chain, like basically cutting it up in different pieces, and then if you run an Ethereum node, you'll only like have a part of Ethereum's history, and then somehow that'll like all be stitchable together, something like that. And then also proof of stake, which is supposedly more efficient, which I don't think it will be. So to me, those are huge question marks. Like, is that, when you buy Ethereum today, you're basically buying an option on future Ethereum because you think that future Ethereum is going to work. And so that's a risky proposition to me still.
I want to address that. That was an excellent answer, by the way. The proof of work to proof of stake change. I think it's risky. I'm not a fan of proof of stake either. So I want to know what if they really do this and go to proof of stake, what is going to happen to Ethereum Classic's price, because it is staying at proof of work, and it has everyone knows its inflation rate. Do you have an opinion on that? How that might be related?
Yeah, well, I'm not long term. I mean, obviously, I feel like it's interesting that it's there, but long term, I have very similar concerns for Ethereum Classic because they are going to have a lot of blockchain bloat to deal with, so they're going to keep doing proof of work. So what happens is, as the blockchain grows, it becomes harder for individual people to run a node because you have to up and download a lot more, especially, and then it is going to lead to more mining centralization, more likely. And then it's also like, well, what about this and as it, if it can be, so its success can be its own downfall. Like if it starts getting more successful for like smart contracts to run on, and then, it costs like $1 for the particular smart contract today. So what if the Ethereum Classic is like 100x, which it kind of would need to be if it were to be more successful? Well, then that very same contract is all of a sudden going to be $1 to execute. So how do you regulate for that? Are you going to like, it just creates all these problems. At least they seem to be more committed to a kind of a soft fork upgrades approach. But I understand that from a protocol perspective, from a technical perspective, soft fork upgrades are a lot harder to do in the Ethereum environment than they are in the Bitcoin environment. So I don't know. I just see all kinds of potential problems because the modular scaling approach of Bitcoin, once it's there, once we have Lightning Network, once we have sidechains, is going to be able to do all the things that Ethereum is wanting to do. but in potentially a more responsible way, where it's anchored in the Bitcoin blockchain, protected by this Bitcoin mining network, where if an ICO implodes, it doesn't affect the main chain, for example. So yeah, that makes me wonder, like, what is the actual value proposition there too? Even though it's interesting to speculate. I mean, this is like speculators. It's like a theme park for speculators right now in Bitcoin. It's phenomenal. There's quite a bit of liquidity. There's all kinds of narratives. So you can follow a narrative, and then when it stops working, you just sell the currency, and then you see the chart breakdown as well. So like with Litecoin, one narrative of Litecoin is Segwit adoption. So as people stop believing that that's going to happen, then the price goes down, so you can short it. But that doesn't mean that, you know, you should. These are all coins to buy and hold for 10 years necessarily.
I like this. I like your narrative approach there. I haven't heard that term used, but it's very true. Like Ethereum Classic, I think a narrative for it is it's the Ethereum for Bitcoin people. I've heard that before. And I mean that's a selling point, I guess.
Right.
But so there's a certain, you know, you use the word narrative. I was going to ask you. There's a certain psychology out there, a certain way people think when they're approaching cryptocurrencies, and people have witnessed the amazing rise of Bitcoin, and they want to be a part of an amazing rise of another coin. And I think that's part of the reason that Ethereum is where it is that there are a lot of, I guess, wealthy, powerful, connected interests who perhaps missed out on Bitcoin, who want to have their own Bitcoin rise in this better than Bitcoin cryptocurrency, because it does do more. I mean, it's obviously more complex than Bitcoin, Ethereum. So what do you, I think you said you lost some sleep over the Ethereum thing, but for me, I think there are definitely some almost superficial factors that are driving its price, that are involved in the way people think, and in speculation and things like that are not based on, and so they don't care at all if there's no, you know, they don't know the inflation rate. They just want to be on the next big thing, and this seems like it is the next big thing. So do you have any thoughts on that there?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I also think that there's another perspective that a lot of people, and this is not just like, you know, millennials that have, like, you know, some cash in the bank. These are also institutional investors. So from their perspective, they see that something's happening, like cryptocurrency is happening, but they don't necessarily have a very in-depth technical understanding of, you know, what exactly is happening. Kind of maybe similar in the late 90s, if you saw internet is happening, and so you want exposure, and what do? You buy a basket of whatever is there. And back in the day, that meant you were going to buy some Enron as well, for example, because it was part of that story. And it had a big market cap, and people were very, like, positive about it. Even experts, internet experts at the time, were, you know, had all kinds of enthusiasm. And so I think, you know, even regardless of what Ethereum actually is, in general, I think it is extremely likely that today somebody who wants some cryptocurrency exposure is going to have fluff in their portfolio just because, and that is pushing up the value of certain assets that are actually going to be totally without value in 2 years' time. And so I do think that some of the money that has been flowing into Ethereum, because, like, even for, like, you and I and people who just think about this stuff every day, Ethereum to me is very difficult to understand. It is very difficult. Bitcoin to me is very difficult to understand. I don't even know if I understand it really. So, you know, and I read about this stuff every day. So obviously people who just have, like, you know, when a little bit of exposure, they kind of hear about it. They're not going to do as much research, and they might just buy Ethereum without really even knowing what it is. Because it has a beautiful story. Like, you know, it can replace Uber, it can replace Airbnb, we can have prediction markets, you know, it's web 4.0 or whatever it is. It has beautiful stories.
Well, it's easily accessible for Americans, at least. You just go to Coinbase, and so people see, oh, there's another one I can get there. I'll just diversify that way. I don't know what this thing is, but it's obviously the other one, and so that's helping out also. So it'll be interesting when Litecoin gets on Coinbase, what we will see with that, and that will be soon from what I heard. Now, in the end of the day here, let's say that Bitcoin does remain the dominant one. What do you see Bitcoin dominance, its percentage being in the future? It had been around 85%. I know Tone Vays would like to see it over 90% again. It's down to 67% now. Does it matter what the Bitcoin dominance number is going to be? And what do you think it will end up being?
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a low on April 2nd of 65%. So like the idea is that all the cryptocurrencies are one big pie, and then you try to figure out what is the slice of Bitcoin worth in terms of market cap. So yeah, like you said, it was 90, and then it was 80 for a long time, and then it dropped with Ethereum's rally and also the altcoin rallies down to 65%. I think that was a bottom actually. I think it'll go. It doesn't mean that it's a long-term bottom, but I'm pretty confident that we will move up for Bitcoin again pretty soon. Does it matter? Yeah, I do think so. I think it's it's a reflection of the market's confidence in Bitcoin's abilities, of how much is being built on top of the Bitcoin protocol. I think because of this Segwit bottleneck, we've seen a little less actual business models being built on it. Also, we've seen it negatively disrupt a bunch of existing business models. Like change tip would just not be possible today with Bitcoin, and a number of other use cases with like microtransactions that Satoshi dice wouldn't be possible today. It was at one point in 2011, it was half of all the Bitcoin transactions because Bitcoin transactions were free. Obviously, there is lots of Bitcoin gambling happening, only it's off-chain now, and then when you settle or when you withdraw the coins from your wallet, then is when it's an actual Bitcoin transaction. So, yeah, I do think it matters. I like to look at it. It's kind of, I think it's an important metric in the Bitcoin space. And let me put the link also in the chat, and maybe you can paste it under the video. It's coinmarketcap.com/charts.
Of course, people are quite familiar with it, but I will definitely add that in there. People should. That's where you check now. Now on that legendary site there. They have all sorts of altcoins, and I wasn't going to even ask this question, but we were talking about corporate and centralization. And is Ripple, should that really even be listed on there? I mean, what do you think about?
It depends. Depends what you define as a cryptocurrency. I imagine Ripple is using some cryptography. Is it a blockchain? Not really. It's if you want to know what Ripple was going to be, you should look at Stellar. Like that's the project that came from when the founder left Ripple, the inventor of the Ripple protocol. When he left Ripple, he took the open source code and built Stellar. But even back in the day, it wasn't really a blockchain. I think it's an interesting fintech story. There could be something there. It could be valuable. It could kind of ride this same wave. But it's definitely not a competitor to Bitcoin. It's if anything, it's almost the opposite. It's a KYC coin. Like the way Ripple is promoted is that it's extremely auditable. Like for regulators, it's like the dream. Like you could track any currency, any token through all the different owners and like see when it was there and how long it was kept there. And so it could be the next thing for the central banks to adopt Ripple in some way, or for Swift to start working with Ripple. So I think it's interesting, but like for totally different reasons than Bitcoin.
Wow, that I love that KYC coin term. I am going to use that one in the future. When anyone asks me about Ripple, that's just what I'm going to say. Dude, it's a KYC coin. Go with that. If you want a KYC coin, go get that Ripple, because people do ask about it. So we're going to talk about some altcoins now too. So pound that like button, people, if you like altcoins. All right. So you're a cryptocurrency maximalist. I like that. I like that term. Do you have any? Are there any altcoins that really interest you? Do you have some favorite ones out there? Hey, and by the way, I just tell people to buy and hold Bitcoin, but the people out there, they love to hear altcoins names. They just get a kick out of it because, it's like a sports team. Some people are like, oh, he mentioned my sports team. Oh, that's awesome. That's what it's become. And to me, it's kind of a joke, as these third, second tier ones and everything. But I mean, what do you have any in your crypto portfolio? What can you tell us about some altcoins here?
Yeah. Actually, I've been selling quite a bunch because there was this altcoin rally. So I figured I've made quite a bit of money off of Litecoin. There have been historically 3 big rallies in Litecoin, and the first one in late 2013. So it's a nice way to make more Bitcoins, and a lot of people approach it that way. It's like you kind of place some little bets, and when there's like a pump and dump happening in that altcoin, you just offload some. But like I do think some of these coins are gonna be around. I really don't know which ones, but if the whole ecosystem does 100x, some of these coins are still gonna do a 10x. And so for me, I know there's some people that are following all the ICOs from the beginning, right? They just and it makes sense that if you're a day trader, you just buy some of these coins for super cheap, and then they get pumped after a couple of weeks. It just, to me, I don't find that a wise investment of my resources. I think also you expose yourself to a lot of custodial risk, right? Custody means you trust another party to keep your coins for you. I think there are some wallets out there now that have the ability to hold multiple altcoins. So I guess I should look into that. But one of the reasons why I haven't been very active in cryptocurrency altcoin trading is just because if I have a big portfolio and it's sitting on Poloniex and Polo goes under, that's just, where am I then? Like that doesn't help me. So what I look for is is there a credible developer team? Is there a credible use case? And then also importantly, I look at the chart. Like, is the chart looking kind of promising or not? Is it going sideways, or is it just slowly dying, which a lot of them really are. So I really want to see some an upward trend developing. And so for example, I sold some Litecoin, but I kind of bought back in a little bit because I think the story is, for the first time I see people really having a long-term idea that Litecoin could be really something. So I don't know how long that story is going to last, but at least for now. And I'm all these things that I'm saying now, really, I could change my mind tomorrow. I kind of value how fickle I am when it comes to altcoins, because the stories change really quickly. Then there's Monero, which I think has, I think I should have recognized earlier on that there was a story there that made sense with with the privacy things. Roland Kreve from Belgium was always sending me links, and I think he was right. There was something there, and I think that's validated now. It's worth a lot more than it was. So I have some Monero. I bought some Ethereum actually today because I think it might stay above $50. $50 to me is an important level. If it can stay above that, I think it could really shoot up, for another one of those rallies. If it stays below, that's gonna be a tough resistance to bite through. The longer it lasts, the more likely it is that it loses momentum, and that people who really all of a sudden had a 200% gain are gonna want to lock in that profit and sell, and that's when it gets. There's a concept of gravity. This weird thing with prices where it's almost like with physics that a rising currency has different or a rising asset has different physical properties than one that's dropping. And so this, like, it's the same thing with the story. Like, there's a story that drives it up, but then all of a sudden, like, if it stagnates, then that momentum is lost, and then you cannot say like, oh, it's just going to keep going up. You need a different story, and often that's a critical story, and then it like pulls back. And so for Ethereum, it's crucial that the momentum has to stay. It's not going to go sideways for 6 months like that. To me, that's like impossible. It's either going to go down or like a lot more up in the short term. So I have some Ethereum, but like not a lot. I probably should buy some. I don't know. If the price goes up more, I'll buy more. And then what else? I guess I did buy some Stellar, just because it's like one of those weird Ripple derivatives that people might learn about and be like, oh, Ripple is going up, so maybe I should like have like the secret coin that nobody really knows about, and then it'll follow the tracks of Ripple. And in the same sense, I have some Ethereum Classic, which some people might like diversify some of their profits and put it into Ethereum Classic. And I think that's about. Oh, and some Ripple. I have some Ripple too. I think that's about it for now.
Okay. That's people love to hear this. Well, you did give some good reasons and logic behind all of that, all of those interesting things. But I guess I got an opposite question now. Obviously, there's been an altcoin bubble. We won't talk about the third tier and fourth tier ones that are like they go insane just out of the blue. And those should not even be messed with at all. But when this, with the top tier ones, when Bitcoin gets its act together, obviously some of the money is going to flow back into Bitcoin. And I think it's going to be a lot. Which one of these top altcoins is going to be hurt the most when is going to deflate the most once Bitcoin gets its act together?
Well, I mean, if you look at Segwit, and what it means is like, hyper fast scaling all of a sudden is possible. Side chains are probably going to be easier too. And so I think especially the case where all of a sudden you have very fast transactions that are very secure opens up all these. I think it's a threat for Ethereum, to be honest. I think it bites into that narrative of like, oh, like in Ethereum, everything's like, so cheap nowadays. And, just for, I think that would really bite into that narrative. And then, I don't know. A lot of people disagree, and they say, they can live together in harmony, and there shouldn't be, and you can easily go from one currency to the other. And but I think there is overinflated expectations now for Ethereum, and whereas Bitcoin, I think there's a whole bunch of extremely promising tech that is just right there. Like even sidechains, like nobody talks about sidechains, but DriveChain is close to completion. DriveChain is Paul Storz's project, which is sidechains for Bitcoin, and it's going to allow all kinds of innovation that, so a lot of these developers have just been chugging along, and I think, and obviously maybe also Monero, because that's, the idea is there that it's more private, and then once Tumblebit, I think it's going to be launched somewhere this summer. When that launches, all of a sudden you'll be able to mix Bitcoins very easily on your own computer. It kind of works together with the Bitcoin XT, the Bitcoin QT client. So it should be very easy to start mixing your own coins. So that would, maybe undermine some of those altcoins, Zcash, some of those stories.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point about Tumblebit. That it could hurt some of these anonymous coins. Wow, that's I'm glad you brought that up. I've got a question here, a current event question. Tell us about what's going on at Bitfinex here, and what your thoughts are, why the price difference and just all the drama involved with that.
Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about it, but it looks like there was an issue with Tether. Tether is a blockchain-based token, as far as I understand. It's at least a token, a virtual token. that is one-on-one backed by USD. So somebody has dollars in a bank account, and for every dollar they issue one tether, and then people can trade that. And so you can store some of your altcoin. If you're on an altcoin exchange, for example, you can store some of your profits, for example, in tether, which is kind of like a cash balance, and then you can send those tether to another exchange. So it basically eliminates the need for wire transfers. And it seems like there's some belief that if you go from altcoin to altcoin, it's not really a taxable event. And so unless you sell something for USD and then back, then it's taxable. But if you go from like Litecoin to Tether to Bitcoin to Ethereum, like, none of that would be taxable, which I'm not saying is true, but that's a story that I've heard here and there. And so Tether had become quite popular. It seemed like there was, Tether had some assets frozen, but then also it seems like Wells Fargo had just a general policy change where they decided to no longer work with, digital currency exchanges. And apparently Bitfinex, kind of by chance, was the most vulnerable to, or the most exposed to Wells Fargo. And so they decided to, that meant that you couldn't withdraw any more USD. And now I don't understand why quite yet, but now also USD deposits have been deactivated in Bitfinex, and even Euro deposits, I believe. And as a result, because Bitfinex USD, like, of course you can still sell Bitcoin for USD on Bitfinex, but because those USDs have kind of devalued in price, the Bitcoin price on Bitfinex is higher. There's like a 4% premium now. And that reminds some people of what happened with Mt. Gox, because they had withdrawal issues, which I think were real and legitimate, that didn't really have to do with their fractional reserve problems. And so some people are kind of getting the creeps that, oh, is Bitfinex the new Gox? Which I don't think is the case. I think they are solvent. They repaid all their Bitfinex tokens. So I own some Bitfinex shares. So because I was really impressed with how they recovered from the hack, I decided to invest a little bit into Bitfinex, the company.
All right, I have a Bitcoin future question here. It's not that far away. The year 2020, we're going to have a Bitcoin halving. What do you see for the year 2020 in Bitcoin? Where do you see Bitcoin at? Where do you see its price? Where do you see this world and what Bitcoin is doing as we approach this 2020 halving? How many people are going to be using it? What's going to be going on?
Well, I mean, there was a survey in 2015 that looked at how many US consumers own Bitcoin, and the number back then was like 0.8%, I believe. And I did some research, and turns out that was the equivalent for, so 2015, that was the equivalent for internet adoption in 1990 in the US as well. And so extrapolating from that, I'm not saying that this is what it is, but we don't have a lot to work with when you want to, compare Bitcoin growth to anything else. And I do think that there's some similarities with internet adoption, where it's like, it's not only like a mental leap, it's not only a hardware leap, it's not only like somewhat of a financial leap, but it's all those things combined. So I see that in Bitcoin too. So extrapolating from that 0.8% in 2015 to 2020, it's possible that 2020 is going to be like the Windows 95 moment. That could happen, and that we actually see this breakthrough start of generalized adoption of Bitcoin. Once all these problems with scalability are ironed out, and we have like very performant Lightning networks out there, and just a very diversified exchange system, and several countries accepting Bitcoin for tax purposes, and maybe also Bitcoin serving as a reserve asset for some smaller central banks. I think that is not unthinkable at all.
So do you have a price prediction or a desire where you'd like to see it in 2020 exactly?
Well, my desire is $1 million, obviously, but Yeah, I don't really know. I really don't know. I do think that I do think it's going to keep on being cyclical. It's going to keep on being a cyclical asset. And so to say January 2020 is going to be this price, I don't know. But I do think by then we will have had at least one rally where the price spikes to $10,000 and more. That doesn't mean that it can't cool down again. But yeah, I don't think that's, to me, that's not like a big prediction to make. That feels like pretty much in the line of expectations.
I do hear it. For me, it's still an amazing number, $10,000. I still think it's, you hear all these people who just want to have articles written about them that say $500,000. It seems like a lot. There are quite a few logical people out there like yourself who do say, yeah, 10,000 for 2020. I can't. It's such a number. I can't say it. I mean, that would be just great. I would be beyond happiness if such a thing happened. So we're here at the end of the interview here. We've got 140 live viewers. Wow. Is there any other information that I didn't ask you about? Anything you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to tell the audience, where they can find you? Just anything, any subject matter you can talk about now. Open to you.
I don't know. Well, I mean, basically, I guess I want to ask, like, I still have these questions about Ethereum that I'm interested in, and they're at the bottom of my my article about, I am losing sleep about Ethereum, and so far I haven't gotten a lot of answers. Like, I want to know, like, what are today's non-speculative Ethereum use cases? What are the challenges for implementing something like Lightning on Ethereum? Is there a security analysis that has been done on like Bitcoin bloat and shard, like all these questions? So if anyone has knowledge about that, by all means reach out. You can just Google my name, and then the first link is Twitter. So for people in general who want to just interact with me or see what I'm doing, that's probably the place to be. Yeah, on Medium, just I have some posts out on Medium. That's about it. I'm always happy to chat. I'm there usually every day.
All right. Well, I already have his link below to his Twitter. I'm going to link to the other things that he mentioned here. The SIPA link, actually. And all you Ethereum people, here's your chance. Tell Tuur what's up, man. If you can answer these questions, because I don't know about any non-speculative uses right now of Ethereum. But hey, maybe I'm naive and I just don't know. Who knows? Share them, guys. So, Tuur, thank you for being on the show today. It was totally awesome, man. I hope to have you back on again soon. And people do check out everything of Tuur's. It's online. I am Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video. Check out the notes section below. I post a new video here every day. So keep on coming back to this channel. Thanks a lot, everyone. I will see you tomorrow, and I'll probably have a little bit of time to chat with you guys in the chat right now. So bye-bye, everyone. See ya.